Kundalini Awakening and the Serpent. It's funny. If you look at all major world cultures, religions, all of them, except one, talk about the serpent. Possibly, depending on where it's coming from, in conjunction with the dragon, as being awesome, powerful, healing, nurturing, caring, providing. Apart from one. And this one group of religions, because at the end of the day, they're all extensions of each other. They all use the same book as their basis, are the Abrahamic religions. And it's funny, if we take, for example, one of the most basic stories, the story of Adam and Eve. And it was the serpent that gave Adam and Eve the opportunity to become conscious of themselves and their awareness. And that was said to be evil. These beings that were basically slaves to their God turned around and said, it was the snake that gave it to them, and so it was the snake that was evil. And I'm paraphrasing here. And from that, the whole sector of these religions say, in parts of their religions, because not in every part, because there are other parts, let's make this very clear, there are other parts in those Abrahamic religions that actually very clearly state positively the serpent, how it creeps in over time. But there are obviously people very deeply programmed that don't believe this or have ignored this. So why is it that in the cultures that looked to produce a civilization of a definite hierarchy, creating the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class? Take the days of the Romans with Christianity. There were the upper class, the controlling powers, the middle class that were the Romans, and the lower class that were the slaves, and the working class that were the free men, the free slaves. It was cultures like this that took the ideas when they embraced, the Romans embracing Christianity, that they stole the concepts from the Greeks, which in the Greek world worked, and manipulated them into the culture we still live in today in the West. The two biggest religions of the world are both Abrahamic religions. The third Abrahamic religion is one of the most powerful in doing whatever they want and controlling around the world. So these three controlling religions are the ones that in some way, shape, or form demonize the power that is given to the individual to subdue them, to make them less than, that they have to worship that they are beneath, that they will never be as good as, where all the others, the much older religions, they promote the exact opposite. Why is that? Don't get me wrong. Whilst there are many problems with all the religions, we can pull apart every single religion. They all have many powerful points within them. And obviously, the new religions were built, they stole the ideas of old religions. So it's very clear to see the idea of a demigod, Messiah, Son of God, that was born around the winter solstice time, that died and came back and to save humanity. And well, I mean, that's even in the older religions, and that's not just the European, that's everywhere. And they literally copied that idea, took it, plugged it into their new thing so it would be accepted. There are other stories. It's like turning water into wine, that famous story in the Christian Bible. There have been, you can find it, scientifically tested. They found wine vats from 2,000 years ago from that culture that when they tested samples that remained in the bottom of the wine vats, they were valid. They had valid DNA to test. And they found DNA, because obviously they were looking for the DNA of grapes and seeing what else was in there. They found in wine vats that it wasn't just grapes, that there were psychedelic things in there. Whether this was types of fungus, whether this was types of toad skins, whether this was, they were concoctions that these people made, and they turned water into wine for celebrations, which these days, those people would be labeled as drug dealers. Perhaps ceremonial shamans at a religious celebration, because that's what a wedding is. Fair enough. It could be one, it could be the other, depending on how you look at things. So turning water into wine is literally a story of shamanic plant medicine, if you wish to look at it that way, or a drug dealer getting people high. It's been proven. The science is out there. It's been done. So don't take individual stories unless you can do the research and look at things. Now, again, don't take me wrong, because, for example, if you read the scriptures of those three Abrahamic religions, some of the things they say are amazing. They're brilliant. And when you bring in the texts that were banned, that were kicked out, and obviously, for example, if we talk about Christianity, everyone quotes the King James Bible. You have to understand what the King James Bible is. The King James Bible was a political book written to control Britain and its enemies of the time. So it was written in such a way, it was a political book. And everyone quotes that as the biggest thing. I mean, go look at the other books that he had developed over his time. It just tells you the type of man he was. So we shouldn't use that in English as the main thing. And when was it written? When was it put together? It's a very bad example of a book to use and quote as the best thing out there since sliced bread. But when we bring back in the books that were not admitted, the Gnostic texts and other things for the Christian book, obviously we're talking about 3 religions here, but we can find some amazing stuff in them, some amazing teachings, some little clues, some little tips, if we know how to read them. Because we must understand, just as the Vedas, just as the Taoist texts, just as everything, all these texts were written in such a way that most people could not understand them for a very specific reason. So the layman who takes these books written down thousands, hundreds of years later, changed, manipulated for political gain, and when I say manipulated for political gain, I'm going to give you another example with Christianity. We talk about the Bible. There isn't the Bible. There are hundreds of different publications of Bibles. I remember when I was at school, I went to a religious school. And one of the things we had to do was study the Bible. And the way we studied the Bible, one of the exercises we had to do, was we were given, I think it was 5 or 10 different Bibles. And we had to study them and find the narrative, find the bias, just like newspapers do. So you have, conservative or Republican and, different political parties, and see the way things are written. And we had to do the same thing, compare and contrast that into the Bibles. And when you did that, you discovered there wasn't one Bible, there were hundreds of different Bibles. Is it the feeding of the 5,000, of the 500, or the 50? Turning water into wine, is that in the Bible? Because it's only in some of them and not in others. So there is not one Bible. People refer to the King James Bible as the Bible, but yet, as I've already said, that's a political book written by this guy with some really messed up ideas, looking to control not only the country he was in charge of, trying to unite England and Scotland at the time, trying to stop warring factions with France and Ireland. Yeah. You have to look at everything in context. So there is not one book. And then all these stories are omitted, and in some and not others, and changed and manipulated. And so it becomes very, very difficult to take these things literally, because they're not meant to be taken literally. Just as all the other books of the other religions are not to be taken literally. It's very interesting these days. We have this idea of the Palladians, the Arcturians, right? Very popular thing on social media. This new thing. It's been around for a while, but it's picked up steam recently. These higher blue beings, Palladians, the Arcturians, or the Hindu gods. What? There are certain schools of Hinduism, because Hinduism is not a religion. It is an amalgamation of dozens of religions put together. And from some schools, the gods are depicted as being blue, flying around and blah, blah, blah. So the modern idea of the Palladians, or whatever you want to call them, is literally a rehash, a reinvention of that branch of Hinduism. Nothing more, nothing less. This is why we have to have everything in context. When we read an author, when we read a book, when we read a version of a book, we must also understand who wrote it, why they wrote it, when they wrote it, what they wrote it for. It's funny, the only sort of negative comments I get on my channel tend to be from one major ones tend to be from one type of person. There are a couple of others, but they all fall into a very limited frame of reference. They are very particular archetypes. It's very interesting to observe. One of them being those religious people that shout, ego, you're egotistical, you're biased, you're programmed. To me, you haven't done your research. And they are only able to quote one religion of a few different texts and mainly their beliefs. And they shout ego to me that I have researched 30 years of it. And then most of the time they'll come along, they'll watch one of my videos and they'll claim something. Oh, you haven't done this or you haven't done that. And I'm sitting there thinking, when I read these comments, and I'm just like, seriously? You claim to know me? You claim to know everything I know after watching probably 4 or 5 minutes of one of my videos when I got like over 400 videos out there. And you call me egotistical. And then they start shouting their religion, their belief. Serpent is bad, or now is the time, or it's very much like the people who say the time is now. This is the special time we live in. We are living in the greatest time. The change is very close. The change is coming. The change was coming in 3 years. Get ready. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's very new agey stuff as well. Why do those people consider that now is special? Why wasn't it the 1920s that the time was special? Because let's say the 1920s was a big, huge time in esotericism. We had the Golden Dawn, we had the magicians, we had... Why wasn't it the 1960s, 1970s with yoga becoming big, meditation coming big in the West, the hippie movement? Why wasn't it that time? Why is it now? Because in the 1970s, that's what they said then. I'm sure in the 1920s, that's what they said then. So why do people say now is the special time? It's coming. It's going to be. Be ready. Blah, 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 blah. Why do they say that? Because they are in this time. Their perception of reality is based around them, around what they want, their ego. I hate to tell you, this isn't a special time. It's a time of change. Yes, it's a time of change. We know we're in that transition period. We went from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. That is zodiac. Pisces, the power of Christianity. That's why that symbol was used. Now we're going into the age of Aquarius. That's why that symbol is fading. It's losing its power, etc., etc. Yeah, okay. It's a time of change. It's not special. You think now is more of a special time than when the ancient Egyptians are around? Seriously, do you? That's ego. Pure ego. It's special because I'm here. You can see another archetype that I'm talking about here. This isn't a special time. It's a different time because we're in a time of change, but it's not the special time. It's not now is going to happen. Just wait. We can also compare this to those teachers, those salespeople. 99, the magic portal. 88, the magic portal. 1111, the magic portal. Eclipses are a special time. Equinoxes are a special time. 9988, 1111 are numbers that coincide with the Gregorian calendar, which started on a random date in time. Nothing special happened to the first day of that calendar. It's not very old. It's a couple of hundred years old. This random date, when it started, they fixed up this 12-month calendar, despite having enough weeks in the year for 13. The zodiac 12 instead of 13 as it should have. But they will sell you that 99 is a special portal and 88 is a special portal. That's good for them for sales, because you're gullible and you believe it. 99 is not a special day because of the numbers on a random calendar, based off a random date. Full moons, great. Special times, astral times. So of the stars, of the sun, of the moon. Brilliant. Go for it. Random number generators? Or sequences based off random numbers? How are they special? Come on, tell me. That's another archetypal type of person. Do you see where I'm coming from? Do your research, understand the context, and it will help you go a long way to understanding these people. You can hate them, you can get annoyed by them, or when you see things in the big picture from a non-egotistical point of view, you very simply feel sorry for them and pity them. Because they do not live their life in a forward manner. We could almost say, and I say this with a pinch of salt as a joke, but hopefully will show my point. If you do not live your life, if you live your life by someone else's programming and control, that is to live backwards. Live backwards. See you in another video.